Ladies and gentlemen, Microsoft is winning? Is this what winning looks like? This is a cow's opinion. Moo. I can't come up with a theme song, so I'm trying other stuff. Welcome. It is Friday afternoon. This will probably go up on Sunday for a little bit of the content. It will probably come on at the same time as a special episode on the Cows channel of a game that I'm kind of looking forward to. But so why don't you give that a look too? You can just, hit that subscribe button and everything. But right now, guys, we are talking about Microsoft, which has had actually kind of a great weekend because several things have happened at the end of this week that are making it a lot more likely that Microsoft will get to buy Activision Blizzard. So it's a $69 billion deal. But it has not looked very certain in the last couple of months. All sorts of regulators have been saying they're not sure if this is good for competition, as well as Sony has been trying to bang the drum with anybody who will listen, saying this is bad for gamers. Sony, now that is not necessarily untrue, but Sony is really saying this is bad for Sony, because Call of Duty and all of Blizzard's stuff will fall under Microsoft's purview, and if they can get these guys working on a more fan-friendly basis, they can make fortunes. One of the things was that the UK regulators of the CMA, or Competition and Markets Authority, was not really approving of this deal. They were saying, we think it's bad. There's a lot of kerfuffle. A couple months ago, I showed a picture of one of the regulators, one of the guys who's involved in PR for the group, not necessarily someone who makes a decision, had bragged on Twitter that he will make sure that you'll be able to play Call of Duty on your PlayStation. And they had to, kind of half apologize back off of that, because it's not necessarily a good look for a regulator to say that before you've gotten all the information. But the CMA is now saying that after they've gotten more detailed information from Microsoft, that they understand that it would be in Microsoft's best interest to have these game franchises remain multi-platform, at least in the immediate future. The group did some provisional findings and is saying that now that they think it's not going to be worse for competition. Their quote is, "While the CMA's original analysis indicated that this strategy would be profitable under most scenarios, new data, which provides better insight into the actual purchasing behavior of Call of Duty gamers, indicates that this strategy, the strategy of making it exclusive to Microsoft, would be significantly loss-making under any plausible scenario. On this basis, the updated analysis now shows that it would not be commercially beneficial to Microsoft to make Call of Duty exclusive to Xbox following the deal, but that Microsoft will instead have the incentive to continue to make the game available on PlayStation." Now, this is going to be one of those things that we'll talk about in a second after the article. They are also still working on the cloud gaming side, and they have up until the 26th of April. That's over a month away. They have plenty. Call of Duty is the biggest first-person shooter in the world, and even with people like me saying, it's kind of repetitive, it's just not worth my time anymore, the game is too big when you download it, specifically because shooters don't want you playing other shooters, but that's a whole nother article, that it is a massive money-making thing. It makes like $1 billion in its first 3 days, if that, easily. And that's something that even most movies can't manage. In fact, no movies made $1 billion really in 3 days. So that just shows the power of this franchise and how much money you can get. So Microsoft has been doing a pretty good deal. It's also been striking up deals with other places to make sure that these third-party titles remain on other consoles after they become first-party Microsoft titles. But the biggest question in the room is what a final deal between Microsoft and Sony is going to look like. So previously, Sony Interactive CEO Jim Ryan was unwilling to negotiate. This is from Activision, saying his only objective is to permanently kill the acquisition. I don't know if that's necessary. I understand why he would say that, but you got to work with Activision Blizzard regardless no matter what happens. I don't know if telling them we don't want you to sell out like that is necessarily a good thing. But if this becomes increasingly more certain to happen because the regulators just don't feel like they're going to have any legal basis to do it, then Sony's just going to have to hammer out a deal. Like this Kotaku article says. So, Diablo 4 is coming out. Call of Duty's coming out. Activision Blizzard will have new everything, of course, in the next couple of years. And it's going to be really important for PlayStation to be able to access that on their online ecosystem, PlayStation Plus, as well as in their online store and in their retail partner stores. Now, Microsoft has gone so far to suggest that a 10-year deal is plenty of time for it to make its own Call of Duty competitor if it's so worried about losing it. Now, they are still working on European regulators and the FTC, but the stock shot up to $85 a share today, which means that it is the most it's been worth since it was sued for alleged widespread sexual harassment and discrimination, which is kind of what helped build A Cow's Opinion as a show on this channel. This, honestly, one of the regulators saying this is a big deal. Because if they don't think that they have any real means to block it, the European regulators and the FTC also don't as well. Now, let's look at this for a second, because there are several points in this article and update that I want to be clear about. First of all, yes, Microsoft would lose billions if they took it off of Sony PlayStation. Let's not kid ourselves. Let's also not kid ourselves, however, that might be the point. Microsoft might be willing to take billions of dollars in additional losses just for the chance of making people come more into the Microsoft ecosystem. Now, long term, are you going to gain more than you would lose? It's impossible to say until you do it. But Microsoft may be willing to take that chance. Sony is terrified that they would take that chance. Microsoft is a much bigger company than Sony. They have a lot more revenue-making streams outside of gaming, and it is just more likely that they can back up the truck and acquire things. Sony had bragged a few months ago that they were on an acquisition binge too. I'm not going to say they didn't grab anything cool, but they haven't gotten anything the size of Bethesda or Microsoft because I don't think they have the balance sheet to do it. I don't think they can afford to pay tens of billions of dollars to acquire anything. So this is a really big deal for Microsoft. It's going to put them far ahead. The next biggest thing is the 10-year portion. Now, Sony, like CEO Jim Ryan told Activision, gosh, that shows how old I am. Jim Ryan was not willing to negotiate at all. All I care about is killing this. But if the regulators can't win, and it might be that the regulators just can't win. I hate to say it because I understand that competition is not necessarily good for the hardworking men and women who make games. And I love them for it, and I want them to know that I support them. It's not necessarily good for them because there's fewer people employing them. The issue is that gaming has unfortunately never been more widespread available. You don't just have physical releases anymore. You can go onto Steam or the Epic Games Store or GOG or itch.io and you can put out your games and you can have a successful business. So that actually does help. Now, Sony makes good points. I don't want you to think I'm a pro Microsoft fanboy. Sony makes excellent points as they are saying stuff like, Call of Duty is the biggest franchise ever right now. And they're right. It's true. It is. And Microsoft's been saying, hey, if you were so worried about it, we'll make sure you have at least 10 years to make your own first-person shooter. But Sony has tried that. They tried against Halo so much with things like Killzone and Hive. You don't even remember Hive. I had to go look that up. And they just didn't work out. Killzone had some good games, but then it fell into the usual trap that, what if both sides were bad instead of one side is good and one side is bad? Well, guess what? I know you think it's simple storytelling, but audiences like the fact when, okay, these are my good guys and these are my bad guys, and you can throw a curveball every once in a while, but man, don't make it everybody sucks and everybody's right and humans are evil. Dude, it's a video game. We like more simple, straightforward stuff, especially in an FPS. We're not expecting you to write something that's going to win an Oscar. It's okay. So Sony would have 10 years to make their own awesome shooter franchise. But what would they make? Something modern day? Something military that tries to replace Call of Duty? Something that actually maybe is futuristic like they tried with Halo and failed? So Sony, it's not that Sony can't. Sony has some really great first-party studios and some really great third-party partners. They can make a run at it. They've got the resources. They've got that knowledge base. The problem is that if you're doing that, you're not making other games. And Sony has lots of other games that they want to make. They don't necessarily want to take the time and the resources to make their own Call of Duty. The last thing about this article before we move on is that stock price went up to $85 a share. Now, Microsoft's buying for over $90, but this is really high, guys. As that share price climbs, you can keep an eye on it. Just go to Yahoo, go to CNBC, look at your phone. It's got that tab for a reason on your phone. It's got that app. You can just follow the stock and just set it to give you an alert if it goes up or down too much. Because as that stock price gets closer to the buyout price that Microsoft said that they were going to buy for, that is increasingly what people think is going to happen. I think that if the CMA approves it, European regulators may drag a little, but I think they will too. The FTC is the big one. And the FTC has had several big victories, but a couple of big, embarrassing losses recently and some missed opportunities that people and politicians are taking them to task for. Not even, if you gear up and lose, we respect you. But when you don't even fight, and then it turns out that was really terrible for competition, then yeah, that looks awful. So the FTC geared up for this fight. Microsoft has a long history of working with the FTC. I know it's weird, but they do. They have a long history of working together with these guys and helping to make sure that things are fair, even as they acquire things. So the FTC really thought Microsoft would be like, hey, yeah, we'll totally sell off Call of Duty and even spin off all of Blizzard to make this happen. But those are the parts that Microsoft wants. And it really, really shocked the Federal Trade Commission in America that Microsoft said, we'll see you in court, because we're going to fight for this. Now, again, this is not 100% yes or 0% no, but it is leaning closer to that 100%. And let's take a look at one other thing that shows why Microsoft had a good week. The other reason why, and this does not bode well for the FTC, is that here in America, a gamer lawsuit against the merger got tossed out. Now, this happened in California this week, which is not necessarily great because, look, there's nothing wrong with being a liberal state, but California is a liberal state where you're more likely to be able to make these arguments and win. And it did not happen. So the lawsuit got brought by some Call of Duty fans last December who've been echoed the arguments from the US FTC. This is why it's bad for those who oppose the deal. They were saying the exact same arguments. By arguing that Activision is only one of several independent game publishers in the world that are capable of making the highest production quality and most graphics-intensive video games, and any consolidation of these companies would invariably have a negative impact on the video game players. Now, they also went back and said that Microsoft lied when they said they had no incentive to make Bethesda games limited to them from back in 2021, which means that, you know, that doesn't bode well for Activision Blizzard if it's only been 2 years since then and Bethesda games are being made Microsoft only. Starfield and the next Elder Scrolls being the biggest ones that I can think of have all been said, hey, we'll go guarantee these are coming out for Microsoft. We're not going to guarantee they ever come out for another console, though. Now, PC Gamer admits that the term gamers lawsuit has an effect like a bucket of cold water on a cat, but I don't think those arguments are totally unreasonable. And they're right. They're not totally unreasonable arguments and questions to have. But on March 20th, in court documents shared by FOSS Patents Florian Muller? Sorry if I got your name wrong. Judge Jacqueline Corley granted Microsoft's motion to dismiss the suit out of hand did not go to trial, noting that the complaint does not plausibly allege the merger creates a reasonable probability of anti-competitive effects in any relevant market. In layman's terms, the plaintiff's arguments that the merger could have anti-competitive effects is not necessarily wrong, but that they failed to make factual allegations that support the conclusionary incentive assertion. That is legal speak for saying, yeah, it's totally possible that this might happen, but it's totally possible that it might not happen. You failed to give the why and how the effects might occur. This is the equivalent of me saying the Cowboys are going to the Super Bowl. Cool. How and why are they going? Are they going to finally get the running game shaped up? Is Dak going to finally be a much more consistent passer? Is the defense going to improve? You can't just make broad, sweeping allegations. Look, everybody knows this might be really good for Microsoft and really bad for PlayStation. Nobody's arguing that point. But you can't just make a blanket statement to block a merger. You gotta have actual facts. Is it possible that Microsoft will make Activision's game catalog fully or partially exclusive? Yes. Have plaintiffs alleged facts that make it plausible Microsoft is reasonably likely to do so? No. That was what the judge used to toss out the lawsuit. In other words, the judge said that the arguments were unpersuasive and tossed the whole thing out, although they have 20 days from the 20th to make their case again. I suspect they may get short shrift. If this merger does get halted, it probably won't be gamers who started. And the article here at PC Gamer also says it looks more and more vanishingly unlikely. Joshua, I'm not necessarily disagreeing with Joshua here at PC Gamer. Some massive tonal shifts finally happened. What happened was this. When Microsoft first announced that they were buying Activision Blizzard, we had two immediate thoughts here at the Couch Channel. First of all, thank God Kotick is going to be gone, because why the hell would you keep him? And second of all, well, this isn't really good for gaming in general, though. I mean, yeah, I'm happy to pay to make Kotick go away, but this is bad. But as I've looked into it more and more, I'm not necessarily defending Microsoft. I just don't think that any of these legal bodies have a leg to stand on in a court. You have to go to a judge if Microsoft wants to fight. And Microsoft has said, hell yes, we're dropping $70 billion on this puppy. You damn sure better believe we're fighting for this. And you have to go before a judge, and the judge isn't going to be able to go, okay, Mr. FTC, Mrs. FTC representative, why should I block this? Your Honor, you should block this because Microsoft has a chance and they can make the entire game catalog Microsoft only. It would devastate competition. It hurts competition. We cannot allow this. But the judge is going to say, tell me why and how. You can't just make broad fact statements like that. And look, there may be a 10-year grace period where Call of Duty is available everywhere that may end someday. Or maybe it stays. Yes, again, as we covered earlier in this episode, Microsoft would be sacrificing billions of dollars a year. Is that worth bringing some of the player base more into your consoles and ecosystem? Again, you can reasonably say yes. You can also reasonably make the argument no. And I don't know which Microsoft would decide at the end of their 10-year deal with Sony and other places. Which is more important to them? The billions of dollars or the players that they would gain? I don't know. I really don't know. But I think we're going to find out. Because unless some big legal revelation comes out, or there's some kind of smoking gun somewhere, I mean, I don't think anybody's done anything illegal. They've just been trying to buy something. The only legal revelation you're probably going to see is that Kotick and his management team are idiots, even more than we thought, as a new lawsuit gets filed against them or something. But that's not going to prevent Microsoft from buying Activision Blizzard. If anything, it might actually make a few more people say, oh God, you know what? Microsoft can buy them if you just make Bobby go away. Just make Bobby go away and you can have it, Microsoft. Because, again, that was one of the 2 initial impressions I had. This is not really great for competition, but thank you, Jesus. This is enough. If it makes Bobby go away, do it. Guys, the comment section below is for you. What are your opinions? Do you think Microsoft is a lot closer today than they were just a few weeks ago? Because I honestly do, but I want to know what you say. And why don't you take this time to play more games? Because games are awesome and you deserve the awesome. I'll see you next time.